On this episode of Counterpoint, we look at the interconnection between the presidential election, the shocking event in Citywest involving a 10-year-old Irish girl, and the mainstream treatment of it. I'm Eddie Hobbs. Let's break it down. So joining me in studio, I have Declan Ganley and Malachi Steenson. I'm really looking forward to having a conversation with you. But first, I want to go to Nick Delahanty, who's very important information of direct relevance to what we're going to discuss. Nick?
Well, Eddie, thanks for having me on. So obviously, there's been a tragic incident, brutal rape of a young girl in Citywest over the last couple of days. But the point I want to make is that the government and establishment were clearly warned of this. And the document that's behind me here is a UCD report entitled Protecting Against Predators. And it was written by Dr. Mary Canning, Dr. Marie Keenan, and Ruth Breslin. And the fact that this report comes out of UCD, says it all. If they're saying it, how bad must it be? And what they say in this report is that this is only the tip of the iceberg. But this report delivers a stark warning into the ongoing and escalating risks of child exploitation in Ireland. And what the really interesting part and shocking part about this is that in most cases, this abuse is happening in organized fashion by coordinated networks of gangs of predatory men. And this report draws a direct correlation. It mentions them by name of the grooming gangs in the UK in Rochdale and Rotherham. And I just want to read one direct quote from the report, which you could then discuss at length and apply to the facts of the case. So the quote is, "Girls are being picked up in taxis and brought to hotels where they're being coerced or enticed to provide sexual acts to multiple men in exchange for money, phones, or drugs. It's organized. It's not random. Networks sharing kids like commodities."
Okay, Nick, when was that report published?
So that was published in 2023 in June, and it was raised in the Dáil by Carl Nolan. It was raised in the Senate by Senator Sharon Keoghan, and maybe one or two others raised it as well. I'm not totally sure. We know Peadar Tóibín has been incredibly vocal about Tusla and others too. But this report has been sitting on the shelf, basically, and it should be front page news.
It certainly should. Listen, Nick, I'm going to let you go at that while we thank you so much for coming on. The reason why I wanted to go to Nick first, guys, was because Helen McEntee, we'll bring her up here now so you can actually see what she said. Helen McEntee in February 2024, which was after the publication of the UCD report, says this: "There is certainly not an increase. There is certainly not a correlation between the increasing numbers that we've seen in the last 2 years and an increase in crime. That is very clear. There are no facts to support a correlation between immigration figures and crime rates." Helen McEntee then as Minister for Justice. Now, the reason I'm saying that, and especially focusing on it, is that her emphatic statement was supported as emphatically by the presidential lead in the poll, Catherine Connolly, as an independent TD from Galway. And I just want to put that on the record. So what I want to talk about really is the events in Citywest. We now know that as we're doing this on Tuesday evening, and we hope to get this program out this evening, that there is quite a substantial build-up of people rallying in front, and there's quite a lot of Gardaí there as well. Maybe if I can go to you first, Malachi, what do you see happening here?
Well, if you look at what happened over the weekend, this was a young child who went missing in the care of Tusla. And I just want to address one thing firstly. The statement from Tusla last night was a disgrace. And if you remember, the chairman of Tusla is Pat Rabbitte, who was appointed by Zapone and then reappointed by O'Gorman. And remember, Pat Rabbitte is the man who told us in relation to election promises that basically they're all lies, you just make them up and you ignore them then. Why is he silent on this? Last week, a child also in the care of Tusla was stabbed 100 times to death. a Ukrainian lad, who appeared to be here, according to his own parents, just to get a better life, not because he was fleeing war.
And what was it? What was in the Tusla statement?
Well, I'll come back to that now in a second. And of course, that murder, there's a Somalian charged with that. But when that happened, the statement from Tusla in relation to that was that these people were being looked after, 4 young people looked after in an apartment that nobody knew anything about in Grattan Wood by a private company. Now, we know from other instances where these private companies have used fake fake documents to say that they guard a clearance. There's a man before the courts in relation to that as well. But their statement last night seemed to take that into account, that people were upset that these were private companies, because their statement started off last night that this child was, well, firstly, they said that this child was put into voluntary care by the child's parents because
this is the child involved in the alleged rape in Citywest, yeah.
Put into care voluntarily by her parents because she was disruptive. Now, I think that's a total breach of that child's privacy for a start. But we shouldn't know that.
They're not blaming the child?
Well, they're blaming the child and they're blaming the parents.
Okay.
Then they go on to say that she was in a care facility by one of their outside partners, and then they mention connected to a charity, but they don't name the charity. So it's everybody's fault except Tusla. And as Nick, referred to that report, this is exactly the same thing that happened in Rotherham, that people denied and the whole system denied for years, and it ended up with thousands of young girls being abused. And there's no reason to believe that it's just young girls, it's young boys. And it seems to me that the most dangerous place to be for a child is in the care of Tusla. But let's just remember where Tusla came from. It used to be the CFA, the Child and Family Agency. And we warned of all of these things, or I certainly did, before the children's referendum, that the state would take children into care. So
Tusla's on the go, my notes show, since January 2014.
Yeah.
And about 60% now of the allocation of children are going to private companies, a lot of them special emergency arrangements, SEAs, and a number of those have already been disqualified after the event. So this looks a bit out of control, isn't it?
It's very hard to see how a child is in any worse situation with their parents than in the care of Tusla at this stage. And we have Micheál Martin today admitting that there's been a huge influx of minors into this country, which bears out that UCD report, that these young people are being trafficked into this country, going into Tusla facilities, being taken out and being dragged around hotels, as sex workers. And we can't turn around in 6 months and say we didn't know. We knew exactly what was going to happen this week in Citywest. It was only a matter of when. It was never a matter of if. And we've been saying these things since November 2022, and we've been called all kinds of names. Everything we've said has come to pass.
No.
And it will get worse.
Can I just jump in on you there, Malachy, because I want to go to Declan. Declan, what's very interesting about the media treatment here, very, very noticeable, is the management of the words, the management of the message. For example, RTE describe it as happening in Saggart. And then earlier there was mentioned that it was in Garter Lane in Saggart. But it's quite clear, and we'll have a look at it here now in just a minute, the crime scene video. You can actually see that this alleged crime took place in Citywest. So there seems to be a concerted effort to move the emphasis off Citywest and onto Saggart, and it's quite clear that that's happening in RTE. It's happening in the Irish Times. It's happening in the Irish Independent, from what I can see. In fact, the Mirror, to be fair, the editor there, I believe, is Paul Healy, has done a very clear job on it. This is the crime scene. Oh, that was a crime scene there. So you can actually see the cordon, Declan. And it's going around the back of the wall.
Of Citywest.
And yet when we look at the mainstream media in Ireland, at the moment, it's in Saggart. It's being positioned in Saggart. What do you make of that?
Well, that's Citywest.
Yeah.
So, accuracy in reporting is important. But they don't hand out hundreds of millions of taxpayers' money, the media organisations, for nothing. And he who pays the piper whistles the tune. And that's propaganda. That's when you manipulate news like that and information. This is the misinformation that we are hearing about. It's not disinformation. Remember when they made that little specification? This is misinformation. It may be true that it's in Saggart, but it's in Citywest, because Citywest resonates, it means something, and most people in Ireland know what that represents.
What's also interesting is that the Mirror ran their coverage, and they quite clearly said, it's allegation, of course, but they put it into the rape category, and we now know that a man was charged today. And they also said it was an African asylum seeker, and that was an Irish girl aged 10. This was their initial coverage. And when I juxtaposition that to all other coverage other than Gript, you can quite clearly see the management of the message. We're being managed again.
This again, to use their own terms. There was a hearing on this in the Oireachtas when they were warning us about that misinformation is truth, but presented in a way that creates a false or semi-informed impression. This is misinformation, using their own definition of the term.
Well, we actually have a clip from events earlier this evening. That's Tuesday evening, which I'd like to go to, just to show you what's happening. There already been a demonstration there a rally there last night involving a number of people. Maybe we could start with that, or we go to the events this evening, just to show people. Oh, here comes more KPSNI.
You're thinking of
Anyhow, shit, you held the shackles where what? You keep swearing, you don't come to laughing too, love.
Well, it's just started, so I don't have an opinion
yet. Fucking funny, you're trying to get raped. What the fuck is funny about trying to get raped, man? What are you laughing for? That's so fucking laughing for.
Ethnic character.
Well, we know you have a job to do. We all know you have a job to do. Guys, come on. This is too much by mistake.
What happened to that little girl is a crisis.
So what we can say is that since we sunset clip from earlier, the Garda riot squad are now there, and obviously the crowd is after getting substantially bigger, and of course it's on the grounds of Citywest. So it'll be interesting to see if that will be if the coverage tomorrow will be talking about Saggart or Citywest. But I just want to just to move on a small bit and talk about this extraordinary situation where Danes have data in Denmark Statistik, which is their central statistics office, which shows data over 10 years of normal people, immigrants coming into the country. We've had a surge. I mean, I think it's the volume and it's the qualitative change in the type of people that have been arriving in the last number of years is causing the concern, in my opinion. And it's coming in from North Africa, from the Middle East, and Asia. And in the Irish Prison Service, because I looked at the IPS data shows that that represents roughly around 4% of the prison population. Despite the fact that most of those countries, which are Islamic countries, only represent 1.6% of the population. So if I can figure that out in 10 minutes, I can't understand how the presidential lead candidate, Catherine Connolly, who's supporting Helen McEntee, are coming to the conclusion, absent any data at all, that there's no correlation. But how can there be no correlation if you don't have the data? Can you explain that to me, Malachy?
Well, you don't have the correlation because they don't want the data, and they the same reason as if you ask the city council, well, what's the nationality of people who receive housing? They won't tell you because they don't know, because they don't keep that data. So if you don't keep the data, then you don't have the answers, and it's just a fluff, and it's just a way of denying the reality. But just to follow on from the media's reaction to yesterday, in the Dáil today, Mary Lou MacDonald and Micheál Martin, those were the two that I heard speaking about it, all spoke about it without mentioning the fact that there's somebody, they said, obviously, we can't talk about it because somebody's being charged, but that was just, their whole focus was on Tusla. It wasn't on and its failings, which it should be, but there was no mention of the fact that this was in Citywest, that this was in an IPAS centre, that it was a guy in the country who had failed his asylum application. Now, Mary Lou MacDonald did ask why this guy was still here, having been served with a deportation order in March. And again, like why they don't gather the data, we don't enforce deportation orders. And what we do eventually, like we did with driving licence years ago, like we did with the tax amnesty, we grant an amnesty to people and we let them stay. And people around the world know if they hang around here long enough, eventually they will get something.
So what do you expect will happen, Declan? Do you think that the government reaction here will be this will all cool down and then they'll do the usual lessons have been learned, we've learned the lessons?
Yes,
with
absolutely. That's exactly what's going to happen. We're already seeing it. We're seeing the media, the orders are out to the media to manage the information crisis. This is a crisis management operation that we're seeing. And I may sound cynical about this, but the crisis is present in the news that broke yesterday about what happened in Citywest, that a 10-year-old Irish girl was the subject of a sexual assault by an asylum seeker that should never have been in this country, that was here for years, that was obviously collecting dole while he was doing it and being accommodated at the cost of the taxpayer, who was the subject of a deportation order and who was still in this country and was able to rape that 10-year-old kid a few hours ago, a day and a half ago. And there are people that are culpable for this situation. We have known for a very long time that there has been a racket going on in this country, trafficking people into this country, filling IPAS centres. There is a multi-billion euro business going on under our noses that is abusing, and the victims are everywhere. The victims are the sort of victim that we saw with this child this week. There are also victims that are being trafficked, as well. I mean, these underage kids that are being brought in, what's going on there? We're not getting all of the information.
No.
There is a racket. There is a human trafficking racket. It's a multi-billion euro business. It's being propped up, facilitated, and protected from within this system. And if you are in charge, if you are a government, if you are a political set of parties that have presided and overseen this system for years now, you are culpable. You are culpable. And it's not surprising. It's regrettable, but it's not surprising that there are people out in Citywest tonight. And to the people on the barricades at Citywest, I would say, Malachy, and by the way, congratulations for your call for calm yesterday. I think that was a very impactful and very important message. And I hope people listen to it, because there is going to be an opportunity to do the first practical thing that you can do that's peaceful. Do it peacefully. And that is this Friday in this presidential election, you're going to have a chance to voice your disgust with the system and the people who are represented. The organisations are on that ballot paper. Catherine Connolly, she voted for this stuff. Heather Humphreys, she voted for this stuff. They both represent parties and groups that have brought about this appalling vista that we are now encountering in our country. You can hold them to account. You can hold the people that put them on that ballot, that rigged ballot, to account by casting a spoiled ballot this Friday.
Yeah. Well, we'll get to that. I mean, I presume you'll echo that as well, Malachi,
totally. I mean,
because you're in the studio here launching this as an idea.
6 or 8 weeks ago, and we'd already decided earlier in the year that this was going to be a tactic that we'd pursue in this election. But people have a very clear choice on Friday. Vote for one of the three candidates, in fact, that are still on the ballot, and have more rapes of children, have more people stabbed like last week, have more crime, have a further destruction of our country. Or they can spoil their vote and send a very clear message to the political and NGO class in this country that we have had enough and that we want change. And change will come. And they have an opportunity to bring about that change, or other people will. I mean, Ireland is a tinderbox just as Britain, just as France, just right around Europe, every country is facing this, the destruction of their own people. And we're trying to do this peacefully. So again, I'd say to people tonight, in Citywest and wherever the next event occurs, because it will, don't be sucked into the state's attempt to drag you into violence or into mindless violence. Look at the way they still use the Parnell Street attack when 3 children were stabbed. One child will never have a quality of life again. The girl collecting them from school will never have a quality of life again.
But we're being told
2 years next week, and that man still hasn't been tried. So the political class, just as today, said shut it down, and they won't talk about it. Today, Micheál Martin today said, and just following on from your point about, we're having a national inquiry into what happened yesterday. Yeah. Probably in 10 years. And then he said, we're going to get an interim report. That's going to take 6 weeks. Yeah. Get in there, Pat Rabbit, get in there tomorrow. Get that report done before this election, and then take a hike, resign.
Yeah, there's 30 children missing since the start of the year from Tusla.
This is just, it's appalling.
And that's not including the children. But let's go back to one poor child that was missing. The High Court put her into care, a child from, I think, Nigeria. Trafficked here, put into care on a Friday afternoon. At 5 o'clock, she was taken out of that care home. 4 years later, they found that child in a locked room in a brothel by chance. They raided it looking for something else. And that child was then brought back to her parents. She'd been snatched off the streets. How many more of those are here?
Well, I've just been, it looks as I've just been given a note there from the producer that we have a camera live on the scene. We just can't bring it in at the moment. But it looks as if things are really kicking off in Citywest.
Well, that's what happens when you put the riot squad out. They're there to provoke, not to prevent.
I'd like, Eddie, if I might, I want to say this. And look, what happens is people feel powerless. They feel like they do not have agency, and they resort to these sorts of tactics. And I know they're sick of hearing people saying you must behave peacefully and everything else. Here's the thing. They do have agency. Do not get suckered in, to your point, Malachi. Don't get suckered in to going out and throwing rocks at the Guardian. Probably 90% of those guards on the other side of the barricades agree with you. Do you think that they're not disgusted that a 10-year-old girl was attacked the way that she was attacked? Of course they're disgusted. They have children and everything else. There are Irish people like us. They care as well. They are not the enemy. They're not the enemy. You have agency. You have a ballot that you can go to. You'd be much better off phoning a friend, talking to your family, encouraging them to go out and use the democratic right they have to cast a ballot than you are standing on a barricade shouting at some guard who probably agrees with you but can't say anything about it.
And people often say to us, where are you getting? We're marching, we're protesting, and you're not getting anywhere. But that's what they think, right? But when you actually sit down and explain to them, in November 2022, when East Wall started, there was a couple of hundred people there. We have driven that to 50,000 people in April. We have about 6 councillors elected around the country. Not many, no TDs. And look at the lengths they went to destroy us from the beginning. We started Andy Quirk was one of the first people to start buying the flags out of his own money. Thousands of euro he spent and supplying them at rallies. And I'd been pushing from the very beginning that the only flags I wanted to see at our rallies were tricolours. Every rally we have is just a sea of tricolours. That frightens them. They're frightened by the tricolours on the streets of this city and towns and cities around the country. That frightens them because that is a people standing up and saying, we are proud of our nation and we love our nation above all others.
Yeah, well, I got a phone call.
So the people should just finish that because we need to say to people that, we haven't been wrong on it yet. So just bear with us.
No, I get that, but I
And-
just want to get onto Friday and why Friday is so important. And just to explain, by the way, just on the last point, I got a phone call from a senior civil servant, basically commenting on what was going on, which you've just talked about. And one of the messages that was given to me was that this cross department group that had been put together to be ready for all this, they're waiting for an opportunity to actually go on the offensive. They're waiting for legitimate violence to be used by the state, and that's the last thing that will be effective. Because if this kicks off tonight in Citywest, and we'll know tomorrow morning, the coverage is going to turn away from what really is after happening, which is the 10-year-old child that has been sexually assaulted and raped, according to the Irish Mirror, within the grounds of Citywest. I think we can say that. And notwithstanding all of the gaslighting going on in the media, there'll be more to follow. And that will spill over into the presidential election. So, what do you say to people out there that are now, the undecided voters who are watching this, listening to this conversation, making connections? What do you say to them about what they should do on Friday and how they should specifically go about spoiling their vote? I'll ask Declan that question because I know it's something you've been hammering home.
What they should do, before I answer that question, Eddie, I want to make a point here, because I think it's important to make. I speak with this accent because I am an immigrant. I'm the son of immigrants, of West of Ireland immigrants to London. I was born there. I was raised there until I was 13 years of age, although all the holidays were spent at home here with my grandparents, and then moved back. I married the daughter of Italian immigrants to New York. I employ people from 30 different countries, many of them on work visas and everything else, not all in Ireland, mostly in Germany. I am actually pro-immigration. I'm the product of immigration. And good immigrants, good immigration that contributes to society, I believe, is very much a net positive. I'd be self-loathing if I didn't think that. What we are talking about here is a massive human trafficking operation that is abusive of most of the people involved, and that is a multi-billion euro business racket. That's what we are paying the price for. We have never seen immigration patterns like this before in Europe, in European history. The patterns that we are seeing, the kind of developments that we have seen, like, for example, the Irish Times even reported this today. The person the accused in this case in Citywest, the accused had to be given an Arabic interpreter. The guy's been here apparently for 6 years. He needed an Arabic interpreter. This is a very different thing that we're talking about. That's this is not normal immigration. This is something completely different. It's out of control, and it needs to be. We have to end it, and we have to end it now. Come to segue into your question about how do you spoil the vote? The way that you spoil the vote and why you should do it. You have a democratic right to cast a ballot. That is a right that people fought and died for. You have a right. You should not sit at home and not vote. People did not fight and die for you to have to vote for a very narrow set of 3 candidates, one of whom says he's dropped out, all of whom agree with each other on, for example, open borders and all the woke stuff. They're in full agreement with each other. We have 2 candidates remaining that there's very, very little difference between, in actual fact, in terms of any legislation that the government puts forward for them to ratify. They both rubber stamp exactly the same legislation. What we have an opportunity to do is go to the polling booth, get your ballot paper, and put an X beside each of the 3 candidates on it. Clearly do not express a preference. And write, if you want to write anything else on it, write something else on it. You could write Maria Steen or Nick Delahanty, or you could write Citywest, or you could write anything you want onto that ballot paper. fold it, and cast that ballot. That ballot is democratically cast. It will be counted. That vote will be counted as a spoil vote, and we will have a total which will be, and that total will represent a protest. And unlike a march where we never quite know how many people were there, we will know exactly how many protest votes were cast. It is legal. The chairperson of the Electoral Commission has said you have a right to cast a spoil ballot. You are free to do that. There is nothing wrong with it. And just do it knowing what you are doing. You are exercising your democratic right in doing that. And that vote, that spoil ballot, will be counted, and we will know how many spoil ballots there were when we get the final result.
And Malachi, do you think that the fact that Heather Humphreys and Catherine Connolly, they both voted for the EU Migration Pact, for us giving up our border control, which we voted to, we accepted Lisbon II in 2009, specifically so that we could control our own borders. And then the government decided to voluntarily join the EU Migration Pact in June 2024, and Catherine Connolly voted for that. In fact, she was emphatically in support of Helen McEntee, saying there's no correlation between this kind of the qualitatively different asylum-seeking and refugee inflows we're getting from North Africa and elsewhere over the last few years, that there's no connection, when clearly there is, and we can see it from the Danish data.
Well, I think, to ask me, am I surprised?
Yeah.
No, I'm not.
Yeah.
Because there's no difference between the two candidates or the three candidates, or any of the main political parties in Leinster House. They all agree on the fundamentals. They all believe on open borders. They all believe in transgenderism. They all believe on LGBT plus A, B, C, D, E, F. They all believe in destroying this country. They all say they want more housing. But at the same time, they want to increase the population. So you can never solve, for instance, the housing problem or the health problem or the education problem if you keep increasing demand. And people have, an opportunity on Friday to stand up for that little girl, stand up for the Ukrainian guy last week, stand up for Aisling Murphy, stand up for the scores of other people who have been injured and killed. Look at the huge increase in family-type murders in this country in the past 2 or 3 years. Almost every weekend there's one. Stand up for those people. Stand up for your children and your grandchildren. Reject what the state is putting before you and spoil your vote. You can just simply write a big X on the whole thing.
That's right.
That'll do. Write whatever you want on it. Write Aisling Murphy. Write Maria Steen. Write any of the other candidates. Write more housing. Close the borders. Whatever you want, as long as you don't put any numbers in any of those boxes.
Well, can I just as we're kind of closing out, I just wanted to ask you, on the ground, the Spoil the Vote campaign, what's happening on the ground as opposed to what's being published in the newspapers?
Well, we were, just before I came in here, I was out with our team leafleting, with that leaflet there, around Ballybock and that.
Matches your tie and shirt as well.
Oh yeah, we'd like to be coordinated, it's the new image. And a very positive response. Well. Of course, you get a few usual leftists who, complain about everything, but you find when you look at all of these people, they all work for the state, and that's the biggest problem in this country. The amount of people who are sucked into this agenda, who work for the state, whether they work for the civil service or directly for the political system, or in some of the semi-state companies, or for one of the multitude of nonsensical NGOs that we have in this country. And I mean, I think that one of the first things that we'll do when we're in power in this country is we'll be having a cull of the NGOs and quangos. I know Fine Gael threatened to do that, I think, way back in 2008, and actually increased them.
But on the ground, the social media campaign that was launched this week, boosted this week, what kind of reaction is happening on the ground?
Very positive.
Yeah.
And sometimes, when you're in this game, you can get disillusioned, particularly on our side, because I'm under continual attack from both sides. And you'd be, like yesterday, for instance, or Sunday morning, I was walking up one of our streets in Dublin there, and And just this random taxi driver stopped me, says, "You don't know me, but I'm spoiling me vote." When we were on our way to Buzzwells the other day, a bus driver pulled up beside us and said, "How do I spoil me vote?" You know, so there's that instant recognition, and that there is.
A guard said it to me last week.
Yeah.
So I think this is going to be huge. I think this is going to be the biggest kick in the teeth for this government. And remember, when people say, "What difference will it make?" It'll wake them up. It won't make any difference tomorrow, or next week. But internationally, whatever president is there, if she goes to America or wherever, they can justifiably say, when they're slagging off Donald Trump, saying, you weren't elected or whatever, we will be able to say to them, half the people in Ireland refuse to vote for you.
Well, whatever the number is, but the people then that are, Declan, the people that are kind of stuck in the middle there, they're not too sure. They know something's rotten in the state of Denmark, but no pun intended, because I'm a great admirer of the Danish system.
All right. Shakespeare's okay.
Yeah, Shakespeare. Yeah. But all of the people that are in the middle, that are just hovering around, wondering what they're going to do. Would you say to it seems to me to be, I think you're correct, that there's a lot of people already committed to spoiling the vote. But would you now say to those people, look, buddy up, make a phone call Thursday, make a phone call Wednesday, ring your friends, bring them around.
Well, I continually say to people, and we've done this during the last two referendums, which we beat the government on, that don't be worrying about convincing the man down the road. Convince the people in your own house. Make sure they get out. Then, once you have them done, go to your next door neighbour and the neighbour after that. Everybody has a role to play in this. And everybody's role is as important as anybody else's, just as Bobby Sands said. And if you can get one more person out, you have done huge service for your country.
That's well.
And imagine if you get your whole family out.
That's very well said.
And that's the difference. And if we have that volume of votes, this is an incremental attempt to take this country down. They may have ignored the two referendums, but they are petrified at going back to the people with any kind of a question, because they know the next referendum, and it doesn't matter if they're saying we're giving £1 million to everybody, people will say, it'll be probably fake money, monopoly money, and vote it down.
Yeah, so the spoil vote really is a way of telling the government, we see you. We actually see you now.
It's a protest vote. It's saying, we don't accept the way you're running this country.
It's a rejection. It's a complete. It's a protest, a rejection of the status quo, of the way that they are running Ireland, and people know. I mean, to change topic, but in terms of governance, there's a new economic report out today that shows Ireland is, out of all of the OECD countries, we have the second worst level of personal taxation in all of the OECD.
Yeah, they tell us we're a low tax economy.
We are if you're a multinational, but if you, as we all know that are Irish tax residents, how punishing the tax regime is here, we are the second worst in the OECD. South Korea is the only one that's worse than us on personal taxation, but they've got one of the most powerful armies in the world that they're paying for. They've got North Korea on their border, and they have enormous public services. We're paying South Korean levels of taxes with more African level public services.
Well, I mean, just while we're concluding, I just thought I'd bring this up on screen. Just while all of this stuff was happening over the last 24 hours, some of the people that are behind the way the government are thinking, towards open borders and joining the EU Migration Pact and all of that, we're having an event in Vickers Street. Can we just have a look at those yesterday? There we go. So over there on your left, as you look on the screen, you have Ivana Bacik, the leader of the Labour Party, Catherine Connolly. You have Ruth Coppinger, Mary Lou MacDonald is there. Oh, there's Paul Murphy, and of course you have Holly Cairns,
Roderick O'Gorman, of course.
Yeah, and then of course Roderick O'Gorman, who we reckon is personally responsible for bringing in about 11,000 asylum seekers and refugees.
Well, he was texting them, wasn't he?
He was, yeah.
In their own language.
Yeah, so...
I guess in Arabic, maybe the same translator is going to be translating for the guy today.
I had Dr. Owen Lenihan in the studio here looking at his book, and he's done the numbers. It's quite clear that it had that effect, when you track it afterwards. So
the texts.
Exactly. The texts. And
come here for free stuff.
You I think it was a house or apartment after 4 months. Yeah. So I think Malachy...
Actually, the keys to your own door, I think he said.
I mean, if you think about that, when they were, the Oklahoma land races were on in America back in the 1800s, people would get on a ship, cross the ocean, cross America for the chance of getting a plot of land. And that was back then. Now you have to get, the journey is not quite as arduous as was taken then. And we're offering free houses and free money. And wasn't it your own door accommodation?
Yeah, that's right.
By the way, and we translate it for you and then we text it to you.
Yeah, but it's remarkable that all of those people who've come in this qualitatively different surge of illegal immigration into Ireland, it is illegal because most of these are, you're trafficked.
Most of them are just coming from London, Birmingham.
Exactly, that's the point. Yeah, they're just.
And again, something we pointed out in 2022, and O'Callaghan has now accepted that 87% of people who are coming into this state are coming in over the land border.
Yeah, but they're not boating up from North Africa anyway.
No, they're coming from across the water. They're coming from England. And they're coming into the north, they're coming across the border. The same fellas that we're seeing crossing the channel from France into England. I mean, the idea that we are not, we don't have a border with any country at war. The idea that we are a destination, the first port of call of any safe haven, safe democracy for any of these folks is not credible. It's just not credible.
No, I agree. I mean, we gave up border control. I think there was some form of agreement done in the background because they were terrified of putting that to a vote to the people because the people would have wrongly rejected it. So we'll see how all this develops. I'm going to thank the two of you, Malachy Steenson and Declan Ganley, for coming in to talk about what is a very tricky ground and the interconnections between what
it is. It is because empathy is important. We recognise people in distress. But there is a massive fraud going on here. It's wrong. What happened in the last 24 hours is utterly appalling. It has to stop. And there is a way to send a message. You have power on Friday. Go and cast that spoiled ballot. Okay, well, we'll leave it at that, Declan. That was a very good summation. So you know what to do if you just hit the two big buttons, like and subscribe. You can, if you think this content is important, please send it around. But most of all, listen very carefully to what's being said here. Talk to your members of your family, talk to your neighbours, ring your buddies, bring them around, especially those that have decided, well, I couldn't be bothered voting, I don't like anything. It's most important that at the very least they go and spoil their votes and send a resounding message through to this government that we've had enough. Until next time, bye-bye.